start joining our rows. So again, we want our folded 1.5 inch strip, and we need a 1 inch strip. So the width is greater than the length of my strip, so I've just joined it here. See, I've joined it on the diagonal. I've pressed those seams open. Where are we? On here. Pressed again, pressed the seam open, and then folded it in half and pressed. So what I'm going to do is make sure that on the 2 different rows that I'm using this, that the join is at the opposite end, so they're not both on the same side, just to take away a tension from it. So this is my first row. It doesn't really matter, but just if you have a preference as to which is going to be your first block, then make sure that you're joining this on the bottom. So again, for this one, I'm going to start with it overlapping there, and I'm going to line it up as I go. Exactly the same as what we've done on the previous bit, except this time it's just that little bit longer. So it won't be until we come to join our next row that we'll be doing anything differently. There I will be clipping it ready so that we can match up the sections. So again, I'm going to be lining this up as I go. And stitching all the way along. Using this method makes putting a quilt together feel very quick. It just grows so quickly in front of your eyes. There we go. So just make sure it's all laying flat and it's lined up. You'll have trimmed the tags from your strips, so everything should line up exactly in the same way as for the blocks. It's just a lot longer. As you can see, it's only a few inches short. There we go. So that's the first stage done, and I'm just going to press that over and then get my next row. Okay then, so I've got my other block, and I can see where my binding is under there, and I'm just going to clip that there. And I'm going to clip that there, just so that it's lined up. And So it's only because I want those bits to line up that I'm clipping it. You can still make adjustments as you're stitching. You still have a bit of stretch and give in your quilted pieces, just so get them lined up. There we go. So exactly the same process. I'm going to start at this end. Just make sure my block is lined up at the top. And then stitch down. So it's a bit bigger now, so you're going to need to sort of give it some guidance. You don't want all the way pulling it down, so just make sure it's not catching on anything. And make sure everything is straight and lining up. Okay, so there's no sort of rush or hurry to get down to the other end, so take your time. It's worth just taking the time to make sure everything is lining up as it should be. So you can see where the join is there. So obviously you're not going to be able to do this on the next stage, so it's worth taking the time to do it on this stage. There we are, just lining that up. So don't be afraid just to give it a pull and line it up. So where I've got my join here, I'm just going to make sure that where I've pressed the seam open, it's stitched down flat. There we go, off to the end. And I'm just going to trim those triangles just so that they don't get in the way when it comes to folding the next stage over. So what I'm going to do now, I'm going to press that seam open, and there you go, this is front, and not bad on lining it up. You can manipulate it if you need to. There we go, and if you have a look there, it's not too bad, so quite pleased with that. So don't beat yourself up if it's not 100% when it comes to it, and you won't notice it. I just need to get my gloves. I'm lifting it up into my lap. Just take your time. I'm just going to adjust that slightly. Don't forget that if your seam allowance is too big for it to actually sit together nicely, do trim it before you start, but watch out that you don't cut into your binding strips. Just a corner of the join there, just need to snip that off. There we go. Now we're going to come back and do the reverse. Oh, I've got to fill my bobbin thread up. So what you need to do is come back and do along the opposite side as we did on our short strips, and then you're going to do exactly the same for the last join. So that'll be it for this week. We'll have a hole ready for the final trimming and then add in the binding. So look forward to seeing your photos soon.